Can ADHD lead to dementia? Is spiritual bypassing healing? All of these and more are covered on today's host only edition of the Decision Lab. Looking forward to seeing you on the inside.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Decision Lab, where we cut through the BS and keep you up to date on everything in health, wellness, and emerging tech. So we've got a bit of a wild lineup today. First, we're going to be diving into the link between ADHD and dementia and what brain iron has to do with it. Super important. Then we'll explore how your nervous system acts like your internal algorithm, literally filtering how you experience the world. And then last, we're going to get real about mindset culture and like why spiritual bypassing isn't healing and how you can't just meditate your way out of a trauma response. So let's dive in.
I want to start at the end and go backwards, but I digress. Let's talk iron. And I've never heard this before, so I'm very interested to hear what you found on ADHD, iron, and dementia. It's interesting.
Yeah. So this is like really new research. So basically, individuals with ADHD have a higher risk of developing dementia. And so now researchers are looking at, well, why is this happening? And so one of the main takeaways of this new research from the University of Geneva found that it could be due to iron imbalances in the brain. So ADHD brains apparently struggle with difficulties in balancing irons. So like not enough iron can cause a lot of ADHD symptoms, and then too much iron can cause toxicity. So ADHD has increased brain iron accumulation in regions tied to cognitive function. And so this just kind of like opens a door for more research.
What the
Yeah.
hell? That's
Kind of
wild.
crazy. Yeah.
I feel like some people don't even understand. Like people hear about metals and they hear about iron and like, well, how the hell is iron in my body and my blood and stuff like that? But like, and a super easy example is hemoglobin uses iron to bind oxygen and things to it to like transport oxygen and stuff around you. So I wonder if that has anything to do with this dysfunction in ADHD is like less oxygen is getting to some of these places, or I have no idea. I've never heard of this concept before.
Yeah, so basically what the research says is that why iron matters for ADHD is because iron is involved in dopamine production. It's actually involved in myelination, so your like neural speed, and then it also is involved in mitochondrial function, basically like what you said, like oxygenation, metabolism, your brain energy. And so, as I said before, too little iron will impair focus and lower dopamine, but too much actually causes oxidative stress and brain aging. And so all of these lifestyle factors can disrupt your iron balance. And so that's where it's really important in ADHD and in preventing Alzheimer's is balancing the iron. So not having too little and not having too much.
Got it. That makes a ton of sense. The oxidative stress, especially, if you have too much iron, it brings too much oxygen into your brain. But just the right amount makes sense because mitochondria need the old electron transport chain and oxidative phosphorylation. It's not called oxidative phosphorylation for no reason. Oxygen is the main piece of that. So, which is why we breathe it, why we need it. So that makes sense. But too much could also fuck it up too. Myelination's cool too. I love myelination. That's the fibrous portions of a neuron around. It wraps around your axon like a little glove. Or if you think of like a leaky hose, a hose that has all these punches in it, but then you wrap duct tape around all of those leaky things. That's myelin. The same thing. Like a neuron that doesn't have myelin is. It's actually what happens in MS too. Multiple sclerosis is your myelin gets messed up. So this is wild. I wonder how many other neurodegenerative or like cognitive dysfunction things iron is connected to based on this.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We're gonna have to ask ChatGPT or do some research into the literature on that and maybe talk about that in another podcast episode. But maybe to wrap this one up, because we probably have a lot of ADHD listeners and they're like, okay, well, what does this mean? How do I stabilize and balance my iron levels? There's a lot you can do. So, number one is just like chronic stress disrupts the blood-brain barrier and iron transport. And also inflammation from chronic stress or other factors depletes usable iron. The next thing is you need to get good sleep. If you're not sleeping, it disrupts REM and also iron regulation. Then diet and gut health is really important, right? Because gut health impacts iron absorption. And then finally, get your iron levels tested. You know, a lot of us are low on iron, or if you're too high on iron, it's really important to know where your iron levels are at.
That's interesting. Who tests for that? Have we talked to anybody on the pod that tests for that? Does Do Not Age test for iron? Does
Well,
Bionic test for it?
I don't actually, because iron's typically blood test.
Right.
So Bionic
Bionic does blood.
would have a read on your iron levels. So that would be probably a good supplement. I'm not sure if they actually include iron, but it would make sense if they're doing a full multivitamin, they would include iron, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
We'll have to fact check that.
We'll have to fact check that. And we should also put some, let's put some resources for where people can get their iron tested
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's drop
and
that.
how.
Okay. Okay. Let's go into topic number 2. So your nervous system is your algorithm. Basically, how you perceive the world has so much to do with how regulated your nervous system is. If you are dysregulated, you're going to see the world as like overwhelming and scary. And this has been such a foundational truth for myself. Like when I'm stressed out, everything seems overwhelming. Like one email, one call, I'm like so overwhelmed. When my nervous system is regulated, I can handle anything. So it's really your nervous system really impacts how you see the world and how you interact with the world.
It literally does. It creates your world. Perception creates reality, like literally. The way that I like to frame this is it's the stories we tell. So there's physical, like actual reality, if you will, like fundamental reality, what's actually objectively happening. And then there's subjective reality, and that is how we perceive the world. And so if you just think of a super common example. Some kid gets left an hour past when they're supposed to be picked up. They call their mom, like, "Mom, where are you at?" And she's like, "I'm on the way. I'm blah, 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 blah." Hangs up on the phone. Hangs up the phone. What does that kid hear? "Oh, you're not good enough. You're not important. I don't care about you." Like, right? And so that structures their subjective reality and the story they're telling about objective reality. Objectively, their mom said they're on their way. Didn't say anything else objectively. Subjectively, though, the kid takes it to heart and is like, "I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not important." And that's the subjective story that they start to tell. And then all of their reality in the future is filtered by that perception, is filtered by that story. So the rest of their entire life, like they get into a relationship and they have this belief or story: "I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not important." And that filters their objective reality. And that's like a way that like a little T trauma can filter reality. Imagine what big T trauma could do to filter reality and change that algorithm. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and on the like very positive side of things, it's like if you are able to change the narrative and change your own personal algorithm, like if you change the way you look at things, things you look at change, right? So if you're in a really positive abundance mindset, and this is something I'm working on personally, is like I see abundance everywhere, not just in money, but in love and in nature. Like all these things are abundant, and the more abundance I see, the more that's reflected back to me, and the more I'm going to see opportunities to create more abundance. And my brain is just going to look for opportunities to like, oh, there's abundance there, there's abundance here, there's abundance here. I'm safe. The world is abundant, and so you can really train your reticular activating system, your amygdala, your prefrontal cortex. You can train all these things to see the world in a different way and create your own reality, which is really, really beautiful.
One of the best ways to do that is to identify as that. So I am the type of person that sees abundance everywhere. Like I am the type of person that money flows to effortlessly. I am like saying that you are that type of person, identifying that I'm the type of person that doesn't waste any time. Like I'm like those identifications are extraordinarily powerful. Your identity drives your feelings, thoughts, actions, how you perceive the world more than anything. And an identity-based goal and an identity-based habit is far more powerful than any other type of habit. The reason most people don't change, the reason most people don't stick to their habits is because they're saying, "I am running. I'm going to start running," instead of saying, "I am a runner." What would a runner do? Run. What would a runner think? I'm going to figure out how to run better. What would they like, how would they feel? They're excited about running. There's a very big difference in identifying as the habit and the goal versus just saying, "I see abundance everywhere," versus "I'm the kind of person that does." So that's
Ooh.
that's like a small tweak that can help a lot, I feel like, in this framework.
I think just to like break it down even farther, from your perspective, what are the best ways to shift your identity? Because it's hard at first, like, you know, if you're someone who's stuck in scarcity and lack, or you're someone who isn't a runner and you want to become a runner and like say that I identify as a runner, like I am a runner, it's almost like sometimes when you say that, it doesn't feel true at first. And so then there's like this internal battle of like, I'm saying this thing, but I don't really believe it yet. And maybe that's creating like more disconnect than ever before.
The simplest framework I've got is say it and act upon it and simplify it. So say, first of all, you've got to start saying, I am a runner. I am the type of person that sees abundance everywhere, whatever. Then start to act upon it. Because when you start to act upon it, your brain is like, oh, I guess we're this kind of person now. And it's these little tiny proof points that your brain starts to realize and starts to shift your identity and the algorithm it has of the prediction it has of your identity over time, and then simplify it. Make it way simpler than you think. Just because you are a runner doesn't mean you have to run a marathon. Buy running shoes, go walk, go for, I'm in the middle of doing this right now. I'm shifting my identity into becoming more of a runner myself. And I've started by just doing 2 sessions of 30-minute runs a week. Right? It doesn't mean that I have to run a freaking marathon tomorrow, but simplify it down. Like just do tiny little things that a runner would do and just ask yourself, what would a runner do? How would a runner think about this? And your brain is extraordinarily good about putting that costume on and thinking in that way. We're one of the only species on Earth who has a prefrontal cortex that can do that. If you start to think, I am Chloe, if I started to say that, and I could imagine what you might do in certain situations and act differently. I am whatever. That identity, you can put on that superhero costume, and your brain is really freaking good at like trying to figure out and predict what that kind of person might do and just act upon some of the smallest ones. That's one of the easiest ways that I would start to craft this new identity.
Oh, I like that a lot. I've always liked the idea of almost having like alter ego identities, and that's helped me through moments when I've been really, really afraid. And I have this like, I've constructed this like badass alter ego that's super confident, that's rich and famous, and yes, yeah. And if you can just step into like, what would that person do? Or maybe you have somebody who's like an actor or a role model, and you can just step into their energy and be like, I'm just acting as them. I'm not even myself, I'm acting right now. And sometimes you act until you become. That's something that's really, really helpful. And then the other thing I have to say on this is regulate your nervous system to that, because I really like, you know, EFT tapping or breath work, because if you say, you know, I'm the person that I identify as someone that sees abundance everywhere. If you're feeling a block come up, you can tap on that until it softens in your body and you start to believe it. So you might feel tense, be like, I identify as someone that sees abundance everywhere, and that might feel really tense and uncomfortable at first. But if you just keep repeating that, keep tapping that, your nervous system calms down and breathing, then eventually you'll start to believe it. Like after tapping for 3 or 4 minutes, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I am a person who sees abundance everywhere. I find
Nice.
abundance everywhere. And so that's a really good way to quickly implement it instead of having this fight.
That's an interesting piece. That's true. There is almost always resistance in people's systems for these types of shifts and changes. So that's great. I mean, I like that. The other thing you could do also is, from the IFS side of things, is befriend that resistance. Figure out what parts of you are afraid of this change or afraid of this new identity, and befriend them, get to know them, talk to them, do parts work with those parts of you, so that they can drop their defenses a little bit and allow you to become this new thing. So I like that. EFT and IFS, both of those can be great for helping regulate this. And then if you're looking for this alter ego, The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman, great book on this concept of an alter ego. So many people and famous people in history have these alter egos. Kobe Bryant had the Mamba. Sasha Fierce is, who is it? Beyonce, yeah, that's her alter ego. I think Oprah even has one. Like, so many people have these alter egos that help them embody these new identities and act, believe, think differently. So it's super freaking powerful. Your brain is so much more powerful than you think. I love it.
Okay, topic 3. Ready?
We're cruising along here. You can't meditate your way out of trauma response. This is like the fucking core of my being. Talk to us about this one.
Well, I think although meditation and finding stillness is really, really helpful, I think there's a dark side of this spiritual culture that can be bypassing. And so it's a balance. It's a balance between meditating and healing and positivity. And it's also a balance of feeling your emotions and being in it, because like this is the lived experience. And so what we see a lot, especially being in like the human optimization space, biohacking, spirituality, manifestation, there's so much bypassing. Even in the fitness industry, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe you don't need to run another marathon. Maybe you actually just need to go to therapy and deal with your problems. So
Stop
you're
running
right.
from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, I literally just wrote a blog about how trauma-informed therapy isn't trauma therapy, and I like about how people just the soul of that is that trauma-informed therapies are often top-down therapies that focus only on the mind instead of the mind, brain, and body in unison. And if you don't, meditation is another one of those things that's very mind-focused generally. There are somatic meditations and parts meditations and things that start to blend these things, but traditional meditation that if I say meditation, what someone would traditionally think is very mind focused, only on the mind.
Yeah.
So you can only get so far. And one of the things that you put in the notes here is that for people with trauma or a dysregulated nervous system, stillness can feel like danger, not peace, which makes total sense. If you're coming from an abusive relationship, for example, or you have childhood trauma, you had an abusive parent, the calm before the storm feeling only creates more anxiety. That those moments of peace and quiet were anticipatory fear, and that is just building up in your nervous system. So if you don't do something to regulate that thing and work with the parts that were terrified in that piece, meditation is absolutely something that could trigger you. And I have had clients and do have clients who struggle with meditation for this exact reason.
Yeah, completely agree. And not to discount meditation, because meditation, breath work, like stillness and finding peace, I think is such a beautiful tool if you can get there. If you're not in an active state of trauma, if you're not in an anxious response, if you have the capacity to go there, I think it can be the most incredible these can be incredible life-changing tools, but it's not for everyone or not for every stage of the healing process.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
so
agree.
like for me, better alternatives, I always tell people, like, if you can't meditate, journal, because that's a much more active, you're engaging your body, you're engaging your mind, you're getting things out onto paper. So it's very, very therapeutic, and it's training mindfulness in a way that doesn't really feel scary because it's very active.
Right. Yeah, I like that. Doing some parts work and befriending these parts, I think, like the triggered part, if you do some meditation and you're triggered, working with that part and getting to know that part, whether it's a manager or firefighter, can be super, super powerful as well. Just the concept and recognizing that this is a part of you and not who you are, I think is powerful as well. Like some people just don't even understand that concept. Like you aren't anxious, a part of you is anxious.
Yeah.
You are calm, courageous, clear, connected, curious, compassionate. That's your natural state. Anxiety, fear, like these triggered states are not who you are, they are part of you. Recognizing that, I think, can be super helpful too.
Completely.
Yeah, so this is interesting. How do you define spiritual bypassing? What is that to you?
Ooh, that's a good question. Okay, spiritual bypassing. I would say it's using spirituality and spiritual tools to actually like avoid your emotions or your feelings.
Yeah, yeah. I 100%. I 100% agree with that. And the other thing too is I feel like people over-index. I see this a lot in the IFS space. IFS is something called the self, and the self is your calm, compassionate, curious, like core being of who you are. And the more self-like and self-led you can be, the better. Air quotes for people who are listening. However, I feel like people forget that it's okay to be blended with your parts. It's okay to be like in the emotions at times. In fact, I think it's good for you to do that and get to know these parts and be. You're up on a mountain in Kumbaya land forever. Are you really changing the world, affecting the world? Sure, your example is something that people can talk about, but are you supposed to be floating in a cloud your whole life, or are you supposed to get out in the world and act and change the world and help spread self-energy and self-concept and some of these spiritual things?
Yeah, I think I completely agree. Like some of these spiritual things can be a form of dissociation. And meditation can be a way to change your brain, or you can say, I don't like how I feel, so I'm going to go into meditation for 3 hours. And that's actually just avoiding. It's a state change. It's no different than a drug or an alcohol. And you're avoiding what needs to be addressed, because the best way very often is to feel these feelings and allow these emotions to be and to pass. If you're not feeling them, you're storing them in the body, and they're going to come back and haunt you later.
Interesting you say storing in the body, because I just wrote an entire blog about how trauma is not stored in the body. It's expressed through the body, but it's a very common misconception that people have because of the book, The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah.
But I just want to be extraordinarily clear. While metaphors are handy dandy and beautiful for trauma therapists, and I love it, I use them, it's not a mechanism. There's no mechanism, neurologically, physiologically, immunoendocrine, that shows us that on even oncology, that shows us trauma is stored in your body like a tumor is stored in your body. It's just not how that works. Some people suggest it's in your muscle fibers or your fascia or something like that, but even if it was in your fascia, if I poked on it, it would not instigate a memory. It wouldn't instigate, so it's just, that's something to be aware of necessarily. It is your body doesn't keep the score. Your brain keeps the score. Your body is the scoreboard. Neural patterns and neural rewiring and those types of shifts in your nervous system, your autonomic nervous system being stuck in a sympathetic state, are expressed through your body. Fatigue, chronic stress, or chronic muscle tension, things like that. It's expressed through your body. That doesn't mean that you could go into your body and cut it out like a tumor, because that's just not how it's not stored there.
Okay, I like that concept. It makes sense because there are, structural and functional changes to the brain and the nervous system when you do experience trauma.
Yes.
So like
the nervous system. Yes.
Your nervous system, your brain, yes, things are happening, and then that can be expressed. These changes, that first there's a trauma, and then you have a hyperactivation of the amygdala, greater inflammation because of the trauma and all the chronic stress, and then that presents itself as disease. I think that's a really good and healthy way to look at it, instead of, true, like, is it stored, is trauma in my shoulders? Like, no, not necessarily, but I've had trauma that increased cortisol that caused muscle tension and caused inflammation.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes. Psychoneuroimmunoendocrinology is what that is called. Like the study of all those complex systems and how they come to express trauma through your body. It's like my exact, if I had to put an exact area of research that I focus the most on, that would be it. And I love it. And you see this, this is important because this happens a lot with spiritual bypassing. If you're spiritual bypassing, you are shoving these types of things down, and you're not working with these types of emotional burdens. Just like someone who is not exactly like someone who's drinking alcohol or who is binge watching porn or things like that, doing drugs. They do those things to bypass. Spiritual bypassing is a manager and can be, or a firefighter in IFS terms, which is trying to react and distract you from emotional turmoil or giant emotional wounds that you're unwilling to face. So, and some indicators, if you're spiritually bypassing, that I've found in a quick search here. Exaggerated detachment, which I think is interesting. Overemphasizing positivity. I see that a ton. Forced forgiveness. So if you feel pressured to forgive without addressing the underlying hurt or trauma, that can leave some unresolved resentment. I've absolutely seen that one. Avoidance of difficult emotions, misguided compassion. So blindly tolerating harmful behaviors in the name of compassion or spirituality. That's a huge one. Spiritual superiority, using spiritual knowledge or practices to feel superior or dismiss other people's struggles. So using it as a bat
and then denial of reality. So avoiding uncomfortable truths or personal challenges by invoking abstract spiritual concepts like oneness or everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Come on, that's invalidating. Like, come on. Help me. Help me. So some questions to ask. Oh, these are great. Some questions to reflect on here. Are you using spiritual practices to escape emotional pain rather than confronting it? Do you dismiss your own or other struggles with phrases like just stay positive? Are you avoiding accountability for your actions by focusing solely on intentions rather than impact? That's a big one. That's a big one. I feel like people avoid responsibility. Well, that wasn't my intention.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? If I hurt your feelings and I said, well, I didn't mean to, does that make you feel better?
Yes and no. I think you can say, that my intention was not to hurt you, and I'm sorry that I did, and I will learn from it. I think if you were just going with like intention, that could be almost gaslighting. I always like to assume, like, if somebody does hurt me or say something that, yeah, I don't like or take to heart, I always assume positive intention. Like, I assume that most people are good and they have positive intentions. And I do think that, like, intention is really, really important, especially when it comes to feedback, right? Like, are you doing this to be like manipulative, cruel, put me down? Or is this coming from a place of love or just ignorance or not understanding, like, oh, maybe they said that with the wrong like tone, right? Like, and they didn't know. So I think having good intention is important too. There's weight to it.
There's weight to it. Yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like, do you know what your forgiveness languages are? Have you ever heard of forgiveness languages?
No. Okay.
So it's actually apology languages. My apologies.
Cool. Okay.
But there are 6 apology languages. And what you were just describing in relation to like intentionality, like you kind of expressed some of your apology languages as you were talking about that. But the big ones are plan change. So do they plan to change their behavior? Making restitution or repair. So an example of that is if I break a vase of yours, like, hey, I'll get you another vase, right? Yeah. Expressing regret, like, so that's kind of an obvious one. Accepting responsibility. So really saying, yeah, that's my bad. I messed that up. Requesting forgiveness. Hey, please forgive me. And then the last one is an explanation. Walk me through what were you thinking? Like, that could be helpful for some people. So what would you say yours are?
Definitely the last one.
You like to understand kind of what their thought process was. And
yeah, I like to understand. And then I also like when people are like, yeah, willing to make amends. Like, I screwed up, so I will learn from this, or I will fix it or replace it.
Yeah, I like that. I like to understand it as well. I like plan change is a big one, and accepting responsibility. Like, honestly, if you can like accept, yeah, I fucked up. Here's what I was kind of thinking and where I think I went wrong maybe, and then here's what I'm gonna do in the future. That would be a really strong apology in my opinion for me personally. Yeah. So especially plan behavior or shift in behavior so that I just know, yeah, this isn't going to happen again. Or at least the goal is for it not to happen again. It takes time to change behavior. So yeah, it's interesting. All right. No spiritual bypassing out here, people. If you do, you have to give me a planned apology. No, I'm kidding. All right. Next up, we got Inside the Lab. This is actually interesting. Chloe pulled this from our conversation with Lucy Goosey, I'm guessing. But buccal, how do you even describe it?
Buccal absorption. So I think
buccal absorption.
So there's a number of ways to take supplements or pharmaceuticals, right? You can take things intravenously with a needle, an IV. You can ingest, right? You can eat something. You can swallow a pill. You can do sublingual.
Intramuscular.
Yeah, you can, you can intranasal, right? There's so many ways to, receive medication or supplements. And so this one company we interviewed called Lucy Goosey is doing buccal absorption, and it's the same way that pouch nicotine tobacco works. So you're using the inside of your lip to absorb the ingredients.
Isn't one caveat or difference though, is it not tobacco and like things like chewing tobacco and stuff? There are like fiberglass and microfiber things that tear up your inside of your lip, whereas loosey goosey does not do that. Is that correct?
No, that is completely correct. Yeah.
Okay, but it's still a similar absorption model.
Yeah, I think I just use that comparison because people would understand it, right? Like you're taking a pouch with ingredients in it and then just putting it, like basically packing a dip like you would with tobacco, except this is completely healthy.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. I've used loosey goosey and it hasn't ever affected my gums at all. So it's anecdotal, but at least my personal experience is that's wouldn't necessarily, it's not scientific rigor, but it is at least a personal experience. So why is this more effective?
Because it skips digestion and the liver's first pass breakdown. So when you're ingesting a supplement, right, the environment in your stomach is aggressive. So it's very, very acidic. And you tend to lose, very often, you tend to lose a lot of potency in the stomach. And so this bypasses that. So, and also with the first pass metabolism, it just takes things longer amounts of time for you to feel it, right? So if you take a pill or a supplement, you're probably going to feel it in like probably an hour. If you bypass that, if you take something sublingually or you use the buccal pouches, that can happen a lot quicker.
Dude, 15,
Like,
20 minutes. I swear to
yeah.
God, I put a freaking loosey goosey in and not even 15, 20 minutes later, I'm like, whoa, I can feel this. So I don't know if it's like that for every single buccal absorption thing or whatever, but it's pretty quick.
Yeah,
which
so
makes
I
a lot
think
of sense.
it's it made me think a lot about, I'm like, oh, why aren't other supplement companies doing this? Like you could do this for like energy things. I mean, you very often take like B vitamins sublingually, so it works quickly. You're bypassing the metabolism. You're getting kind of the full bioavailability of B vitamins. But I was kind of shocked that we don't do this for more supplements. So I think that they are on the leading edge, and maybe the reason is the fact that these pouches are mostly used for tobacco products, and so maybe there is a bit of
huge stigma. That's absolutely what I was just thinking.
Yeah.
Especially like let's just be honest. Like, what are you going to go out to a bar, Chloe, and be seen packing your lip with something?
No, probably
what are
not.
people going to assume that is?
Yeah, people are going to assume it's tobacco.
Not a loosey goosey, right? So it's like that's probably it's got to be one of the biggest reasons why more people aren't doing this. Because of the stigma, and it won't. I'll never do that.
Yeah.
So even people I know, when I was showing them like what it is, explaining what it is, there's still like I don't know about that type of vibe. Like I'll never be seen putting something in packing my lip, you know?
Yeah.
So that's definitely something that I think that's got to be looked at or whatever. I've also heard it's better on your gut too. Is that true? Like if you have like GI issues and stuff?
Yeah, totally. Like very often when people start taking these supplements, it's something unique for their gut, and so this bypasses it.
Oh yeah. All right, cool. Well, that's your in-depth analysis from this week on from somebody we actually interviewed on the Decision Lab. So if you haven't seen the show with Lucy Goosey, it'll be out in season 2. If you're seeing this before it's released, welcome. Thank you so much for being one of our early subscribers. I literally love you. Drop in the comments you were here for season 1. If you're seeing this after season 2 is released, I still love you. And go check out the Lucy Goosey episode. All right, let's move on to some Q&A. You grabbed some questions from our Instagram community, DMs and comments. So let's dive into some of them. First one is, how do I know if I'm in freeze mode? I'm guessing they mean polyvagal, like freeze mode as far as nervous system, versus actually resting. It's a great question. I know my answer. What's yours? How do you spot the difference between real rest and shutdown?
Well, I think it's the emotional state in which you are resting or shut down. Freeze state is I'm sitting here, but I'm frozen. I can't do anything. I physically cannot do anything, and I'm tired, and there's usually guilt and shame around it. If you are resting, you're your nervous system is relaxed, there's not muscle tension. It's a state of enjoyment.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
for me, it's like I'm choosing to rest and I feel at peace with resting, or I'm literally just frozen and I cannot move.
Yeah, I like that. For me, the easiest way to two ways. If you measure any of your biometric data with a Whoop and or a watch, Apple Watch or a Ring, any of those types of things, you can see in your HRV data, your heart rate variability data, like what your stress state is at, and what your sleep scores are. If your sleep score is messed up, but like you're sleeping, but you're not getting into deep sleep, you're not getting into REM sleep, you're not going through all four of the phases, things like that. That's a physiological indicator that you might be in the freeze state. The other way is just literally when you wake up, does your brain wake up before your body? Do you wake up thinking, what do I have to do? I got to do this. I got to do that. And you're in hyper overdrive. Do you wake up and already feel like, holy shit, I just slept 8 hours, but I'm still yawning. I'm still tired. I still feel gassed. I still feel like it's so hard to do things. You're probably in a freeze state. Like if you're constantly trying to catch up on sleep, even after you get good 8 hours of sleep, you're probably in a freeze state. So those are some ways that you can know, like just in the morning, like another one is what do you do right in the morning when you wake up? Do you do something like jump on your phone and try to do anything to bypass what you have to feel and just how gassed your nervous system is, right? That could be another indicator that you might be in the freeze state right when you wake up. So that would be one of my biggest things. True rest is true rest, and you'll wake up feeling truly rested. Freeze state, when you're crashing, right? When you're crashing into a freeze state, that is way different than going to sleep. The other thing too is as you're asleep, do you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. with racing thoughts? Because if you do, what's happening is your freeze mode, your nervous system is so fucking frozen that it crashes you. So you pass out essentially instead of falling asleep into a mini coma, not literally. And then during the course of the night, you're dropping down from a parasympathetic crash state back into your sympathetic state because you have to pass through your sympathetic state to get to true rest. And what happens is you wake up at 2 or 3 a.m. racing heart, racing thoughts, racing nightmares, whatever it is, because you're crashing. You're going from crashing into your sympathetic state and then to your healing state. And people don't realize that. So if that's another possible indicator that you're not resting. You're in a freeze, shutdown, crashing mode.
Yeah, I think that's like incredibly helpful. Oh, I have to say on that. I was just like thinking about myself, and I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, whoopsies. I feel you on that. All right, question number 2. What's a simple daily practice to regulate your nervous system, especially with ADHD? I think you are the best person to answer this one, Chloe.
I literally, like, the hill I will die on is EFT tapping. That is my hill.
You. That's right. I love
will
it.
Will die on EFT tapping hill. Because EFT tapping allows you to regulate your nervous system, right? You're calming down. But not only are you regulating your nervous system, you're actually able to change and rewire your brain. So if you want to like change your freaking life, how you see the world, how you view yourself, how well you can focus, like you can use tapping for that. So you're regulating your nervous system and you're changing your brain. And that's really, really powerful. And then you can also use that to change your state. And so that's for me, that's the hill I will die on.
Beautiful. I love that. You've got tons of resources for that. So you've got Biohacking ADHD with it, which is an ebook that I would imagine EFT is in.
Yeah.
Okay. Tapping's in there. Tapping for ADHD specifically. So we'll link your ebook below. And then in our Balanced Creator community, which is for like anxious overachievers, we actually have your Tapping for Abundance course in there as well.
Yes.
So that is another EFT resource that people can access, and I'll put the link in the description below. So I think those are 2. I don't have anything else to add to that. I mean, I think that's beautiful. Checking in with your nervous system, literally pausing, whether it's EFT or just taking a mindful moment. I think that's a great one. So anything else you'd suggest? Especially, I mean, this is especially for ADHD.
Yeah, I would just find one breathwork tool. Maybe one breathwork and touch tool to bring you back when you're feeling dysregulated. And EFT tapping can be great, but if you're like, oh, it feels like too much, I love just simply placing my hand on my heart and extending my exhale. Right? Normally our exhale is a couple seconds. Bring it to 6 to 8 seconds, right? Create that moment of oxytocin. Immediate relief.
Just hearing you breathe gave me, put you into a relieved state. So I like that. All right, last question here, which is one of my favorite ones. But intuition versus trauma response. What's your? I'll read the full question. Is intuition just a trauma response, or can you actually trust it? So, what's the difference between instinct, fear, and really actual intuition, embodied knowing, if you will?
Yeah, I really like this question. I think when you are in a state of trauma, high anxiety, nervous system freeze, shutdown, whatever, if you are in a dysregulated state, it is really hard to connect to intuition. I think that intuition happens in regulated states. So that's a very good question you ask yourself off the bat. Am I in fight or flight state? Is my nervous system dysregulated, or am I calm and I'm at peace? And so that's a very good way to tell whether this thought is coming from trauma, anxiety, what have you, or if it's coming from intuition. And then I talk with a lot of people on how to strengthen intuition. And so the number one thing is always for me, like, learn to regulate your nervous system, because that will strengthen your intuition. You will be able to connect to your inner voice more. And another way is just to train it. So something I like telling people to do, I'm like, if you want to learn how to become more intuitive, go on an intuitive walk every single day. Take 30 minutes, an hour, and just, you can put a timer on your phone, but just listen to your intuition. Where do you want to go? Maybe I feel like going left. Maybe I feel like going right. And there's no pressure on it. It's just a walk. Like,
Right.
you know how to find your way home. There's zero pressure on this. Listen to your intuition. And I started doing this years ago. And now these walks become crazy because sometimes I'll just feel like going to a cafe and I'll be like, I'm going to sit in this cafe, and then I'll meet somebody. Or, I'll take a right instead of a left this time, and I'll end up at like some beautiful concert that I could have never imagined going to, just purely based on intuition.
I like that. Yeah, that's interesting. From a trauma perspective, the way that I think about intuition is intuition brings up feelings of joy, peace, compassion, curiosity, creativity, connectedness, clarity. Whereas unhealed trauma, when that's speaking, it's fear, doubt, anger, anxiety, resentment, and other negative emotions. So if your intuition is very similar to an inner critic, probably not intuition, probably unhealed trauma. And if you're trying to figure out how to find that inner peace and inner wisdom amongst all these negative emotions, you can ask those emotions, those parts of you, to just pause and sit on the sideline for a couple minutes and unblend from those parts, and your natural intuition will emerge because you are naturally calm, connected, compassionate, courageous, creative. That is your default state. We forget this as we age, but that is our default state. And so you can ask those negative emotions to step to the side for just a couple minutes, so that I can listen to my true intuition. And that knowing is there. You have access to it 24/7. And I think acting upon it with those intuitive walks is genius. There's no better way to learn how to do something than by doing. Your nervous system is made by doing. We're blind if we can't do. Literally, like my eyes, millions of times a second, there are many eye saccades where I'm going back, my eyes go back and forth, yours too. And we would be blind if we didn't do that. Movement is at the core of what our nervous system needs to learn. And so going and acting and doing that walk like that to build your intuition, I think is super, super interesting. And I like that a lot. Nice, cool. All right, so if you guys have questions, you have more questions, please. These are kind of fun to answer. I like those. Please answer. And it could be about creator businesses. It could be about a company that we've talked to. It could be about nervous system stuff. It could be about trauma. It could be anything. It's pretty good. I mean, nervous system, ADHD, whether you're in freeze, trauma. So it was related more to our personal brands. But if you have questions about the Decision Lab or people that we're interviewing, please drop a comment. DM our personal brands, Chloe Goes Inward or Mind Brain Vital Lab, or DM Decision Lab on Instagram, or drop a comment in the YouTube. We would love to hear from you. So, all right, we've got some cool stuff coming up. I'm not going to lie. Season 2 is about to be fire. We've changed up how we interview people, so that we can get more information for you, our beloved consumer, our beloved audience. We've got some cool people coming up. We got Catherine from Energy Bits, which is an algae supplement, if you will. We'll see if it's legit or not. We've got a neuroscientist from Stanford coming up. We've got a neuroscientist who's a specialist in neuromarketing. He literally trains brands on how to hack your brain. So we've got him coming up. He actually worked with in the lab of Dr. Paul Zak, who was the first person that we ever interviewed on the Decision Lab. He worked underneath Dr. Paul Zak to learn,
Cool.
and
I
learn
didn't
from
know
him.
that.
So it's awesome. Dr. Kristoff, we're gonna have him. He lives in Hawaii now. He's a really cool dude, and a really, really cool. His area of research is really interesting. So we've got him coming up. More conversations with Chloe and I. So it should be a fun time. And then we've got some reaction videos that CJ and I filmed as well, all coming up soon. So if you have a topic you want us to dig into, or a brand you want us to interview, if you know somebody at that brand to get us in with the founder, so that we can talk to them, please. If you know an expert you'd like us to interview, please send them our way. Let us know in the comments or hit us up on Instagram. We love hearing from y'all. Even if you just want to say hi. Chloe and I love just chatting with y'all. So feel free, just say hi. But that's it for today. Thank you for hanging out in the Decision Lab. Stay curious, stay healthy, and we'll catch you next time.
Thanks, everyone.